not many franchises as storied and diverse as the Tomb Raider franchise. With the series not shying away from dramatic changes in style and theme in the past, it was only a matter of time until the series following the exploits of the now iconic explorer Lara Croft would see yet another update. The Crystal Dynamics May 2013 reboot was a pleasant surprise to many of us, and it gave the British gaming icon an adventure that was more grounded in reality while still retaining that air of mystery mixed with the supernatural that comes with exploring the nooks and crannies of the world. This time, Lara actually gets to explore forgotten tombs in between dealing with a hostile climate and even more hostile people as she tries to come to terms with the events of the past game. The Xbox One version has been out for quite some time now, and now it's time for the PC platform to join in on the fun. First, tech. Let's talk about performance. Now, my PC isn't a powerhouse by any stretch of the imagination. It's a decisively average build, and while I wasn't able to get a solid 60 FPS with everything cranked up to high, I did get acceptable frame rates with some of the really demanding features, like the game's pure hair feature that renders hair realistically, turned off. If you look at the options menu, you'll see that there are a ton of parameters to tweak so you can get the best performance out of your system. Separate sliders for audio are also present, as are multiple versions of AA and the option of turning motion blur and post effects off. In short, it's a well-made port. Doesn't hurt that the game still looks great on low and or medium quality settings. However, if you want to get the most out of the game's graphical fidelity, you're going to need a beefy PC to do it. Graphically, the game is just impressive, especially the lighting system does a fantastic job at conveying mood and atmosphere, with fire really looking like it's hot and a cold Siberian mountainscape realistically portraying the arid and inhospitable landscape and cold. The HUD is also pretty great, in that there's hardly a HUD to speak of. Most of the things you need to know are communicated to you via Lara's inner monologue or contextual pop-ups that only ever come up when you need them. The lack of a minimap which would normally give you a tactical advantage is also nowhere to be seen, with Lara letting you know that there are enemies nearby when she crouches down so you can sneak around. And just like that, we've stumbled into gameplay. From the get-go, the game does a great job at teaching you the mechanics without making it feel like it's staggering your progression in order to point things out to you. Things Lara can do are told to you by Lara herself in a first-person style monologue and feel more like an isolated person trying to straighten things out in her head than a character spouting barely lore-friendly exposition at you. Within no time, you've learned how to do the basic crafting, combat, and climbing mechanics, and you're merrily shooting bad guys in the face or hunting game for crafting materials. If you do get stuck during the game's many environmental puzzles, you can use your survivor sense to light up context-sensitive items in your vicinity, or so you're at least given the option of calling a helpline if you ever need one. A scenario where the survivor sense comes in handy is during challenge dungeons. These dungeons are the titular tombs you'll want to raid, because completing them gives you access to a unique ability that can't be acquired through other means. These dungeons are fun little logic puzzles that don't take too long, but are nonetheless rewarding. The game also has some light RPG elements spread out over 3 different talent trees. Brawler, which makes you more adept in close-range combat and increases your healing abilities. Hunter, which makes tracking animals for food and crafting materials easier and also gives you more stuff when you loot enemies. And Survivor, which speeds up crafting and gives you the ability to take less damage when falling from greater heights, for example. These trees can be upgraded how you see fit, and all of them have some practical application in the situations the game places you in. It's not an incredibly deep system, but it does the job and gives you the opportunity to improve the areas you use the most. The way the game gives you these new abilities is done pretty well and has you backtrack through areas you've already completed to open doors you couldn't open previously because you didn't have a lockpick or something like that, something that you get later in the game. This artificially extends the game's length in a way that feels organic and logical. The big open areas being a joy to traverse has something to do with that as well. While experience is a resource you use to improve Lara herself, materials help you improve your weapons for increased effectivity. You find these materials everywhere you go. Wood from trees allows you to create arrows, pieces of cloth can be used to craft bandages and can be combined with bottles of liquor to make Molotov cocktails. You get the idea. There's materials everywhere and you can probably use them in some capacity for something. Rise of the Tomb Raider also has a marketplace where you can buy booster packs of cards with currency you acquire by playing the game or by buying them with real money. These cards contain unique modifiers and abilities that you can use in Expeditions, a game mode that has you replay areas using the modifiers on your cards to change how the game plays. These expeditions are essentially score attacks, and by using the cards from your boosters you can either up the difficulty, which gives you a higher score at the end of the expedition, or give yourself an advantage over your enemies. This mode is completely optional, and it doesn't really affect the main game out of some outfits that you can get via the card system or via the expedition system that you can use in the main game. Next up, story, characters, and acting. I think Camilla Luddington does a decent job at physically portraying Lara Croft. She manages to bring a certain gravitas to the character's movements that is both great to look at and intense at the same time. It's pretty hard to act like you're fighting for your life in a horrible situation, especially when you're just in a studio, really. But she does so convincingly. The only thing I would note is that her received pronunciation accent is so annoyingly over the top that it nearly borders on parody. This is probably not something that will bother anyone who isn't familiar with English accents, but it's just odd to hear what's essentially a modern action hero speaking as though she's in a Shakespearean play at the Globe Theatre. I did get more annoyed with her voice while I was at camps, because the game uses these little moments of peace and quiet to spout exposition at you, and the completely over-the-top accent just made me click out of the menu faster just to make her stop talking. Lara is a well-defined character, make no mistake. She has clear motivations and goals, but it's hard to take her seriously with that voice. Lara's reason for traveling to Siberia is to clear her father's name. Her father was looking for the divine source, an artifact supposedly granting life eternal to whoever owns it. Nobody ever believed him, and he died in disgrace. So Lara goes on to Siberia to find it. During her time in the Siberian valleys, she encounters the locals, a group of people tasked with defending the divine source from outsiders, led by a characteristic man called Jacob. Jacob is probably my favourite character in the game because he's mysterious, has great voice acting, and really feels like a father to his people. You learn some cool things about him as the game progresses, but those things you learn about him sort of detract from how he as a character is coming across, to me at least, and that's for reasons I won't go into because I don't want to spoil it for you. During your quest to find the divine source, you also meet the mysterious guardians of the lost city of Katesh, the Deathless Ones. These guardians live in the lost city and are essentially feudal knights with broadswords and chainmail armor. Not what you would expect in a game like this, but it only adds to the what the hell factor of the game's supernatural angle. The main antagonist is called Trinity, a shadow organization looking for the same eternal life-giving artifact as you. The leader of the unit you have to deal with is called Constantine, a man so evil he does evil things because that's what evil people do. The writers do try to give him some extra depth with him wanting the divine source to save his sister's life from an illness, but in the end he just acts like a psychopathic madman who uses his religion to justify his cruelty. He's not a terrible character, but he's far from good as well. They did such a great job at humanizing Lara in a realistic way that Constantine's lack of basic human decency becomes all the more apparent, especially because they could have written the character differently and still have him make sense as an antagonist. So, when all is said and done, what do I think of the game? It's good. In some places, it's even great. It looks great, feels great to play, has a decent, if somewhat limited customization option, a story that won't turn any heads but is good enough for the purpose of this game, and the graphics that are at times just eye-popping. The game's design is also something that I'm really impressed by. You're forever moving forward, with the game guiding you to where you need to go without it ever feeling like it's explicitly telling you how to get there. It's a design philosophy akin to Half-Life 2, and it works just as well here as it does with the classic shooter. My only real complaint is the voice acting, which usually hovers around decent but can sometimes go straight into bad territory with Lara's delivery. All in all, if you love exploring an untamed land while making sure the bad guys don't accomplish their goal, then this game is for you. I give Rise of the Tomb Raider a solid 8 out of 10.